Okay. Good evening, everyone. Tonight's Committee of Adjustment hearing is being held by video conference and live streaming video on the town's live stream webpage at oakville.ca. This is a hearing to consider applications for minor variance and consents held under the authority of the Planning Act. Please keep in mind the intent of the process is to review the application that is before the committee, listen to the evidence, and then make a decision. This process is not intended to be used to resolve any concerns or disputes that may exist between the town, individuals, organizations. If a request for deferral is made, then the committee grants such a request. The applicant and authorized agent must contact the Secretary-Treasurer to schedule a new hearing date. In order to conduct an effective and efficient electronic hearing, we have adopted the following process. If you're watching the live stream of this hearing on Oakville.ca and if you wish to speak to an item on the agenda, please call 905-815-6095. Again, the number is 905-815-6095. Staff will be standing by to take your call and provide you with further instructions. You will be asked for your name and number and add an item that you wish to address. When you are called by the chair of the committee, you will have to press *6 to unmute yourself. The applicant or agent will then be given the opportunity to briefly explain to the committee the basis of their application, answer any questions that may arise. A maximum of 5 minutes will be provided for each presentation. You will need to state your full name and address for the record, and any submissions beyond the 5 minutes will be at the discretion of the committee. All delegations must state their full name and address for the record, and a maximum of 5 minutes will be provided for presentations. All remarks and questions are to be directed to the chair, and any submissions beyond the 5 minutes will be directed to the committee. The applicant or agent is then provided with a further 5 minutes to respond to the comments made by interested parties and answer any questions that the committee members may have. If the applicant agent has any concerns, particularly with the proposed conditions within the staff report, this will be the opportunity to advise us. The matter will then be taken to committee for a decision, and this will mark the end of all discussions. Written notice of the committee's decision will be mailed no later than 10 days for minor variance and 15 for consent applications to the agent, applicant, any other person who has filed a written request for such a notice. The last day to appeal the decision of the Ontario Land Tribunal, the decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal will be noted on the decision. Only the applicant, specified persons, or public bodies may appeal the committee's decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal. In November of 2022, Bill 23 legislation, the More Homes Built Faster Act, amended the Planning Act to remove appeal rights for members of the public. If no appeal is received within the prescribed timeframe, the decision of the committee becomes final and binding, and the Secretary-Treasurer will then notify the applicant, agent, and any other person who has received a copy of the decision through written correspondence. People participating in this hearing are to be respectful of and courteous to all members of the committee, town staff, and any other person attending this electronic hearing. Tonight's electronic hearing will be video recorded and available for future viewing at oakville.ca. Thank you. Okay, we have no regrets this evening. Do I have any declarations of peculiar interests? I see none, thank you. Madam Secretary-Treasurer and members of the audience, I will now be taking deferrals or withdrawals of applications. Anyone seeking to defer their application may raise their hand and will be invited into the panel to speak.
I have a hand up, Madam Chair. One moment, please.
Hi, good evening, Madam Chair.
Good evening.
My name is Brian Robinson. I am the planning consultant for the owners of 85 Bronte Avenue, application CAVA-063-2024. We
Yes.
would like to request a deferral this evening.
Very well. I'm assuming it's because of the unfavorable comments in staff's report that you wish to continue to work with them and the members in the public who've submitted letters of opposition.
Yes, unfortunately, also due to unforeseen circumstances, we were not able to post the notice signs to provide appropriate notice for the upcoming meeting. So we'd like the opportunity to bring this forward at a later date.
Very well. You've seen the letters of opposition. I do have 12 on hand. I will read the names just for the record, but I urge you to contact the neighbors and come of a meeting of the minds, so to speak, once your deferral is granted. I just want to acknowledge the letters that we've received from Tyler Donald, Haley Donald. Sorry, the handwriting is really small. Ross, Randy, Harry Shea, Lori Bigard, Paolo Marzio, Colin Tooney, Brian Sutherland, Andrew Kroll, Tony Sirocola, Dan Prothers, and Chris Garrett. And I also had some interested in attending. Those who have submitted requests to attend, please note that you will have the opportunity to do so at the next opportunity that this application comes before the committee. Members of the committee, all those in support of a deferral. Okay, the application has been deferred. Thank you, Ms. Robinson. You'll see the Secretary Treasurer at your earliest convenience. And we do appreciate your forthcoming with respect to the notice.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Have a good night.
You too. Thanks.
Madam Chair, we have another hand.
Yes, thank you. I see Ms. Medviva has her hand up. Go ahead, Ms. Medviva.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I'm here on behalf of application DAV 139-2024. So that's for 208 Denessel Drive. We're here to seek a deferral request for two reasons. We received late notification that there's actually a misvariance related to a stairwell encroachment along the northern property line. And secondly, to allow for further opportunity to revise the minor variances and further discussion to address concerns raised by town staff.
Very well. Thank you, Ms. Medviva. All those in support of a deferral. The application has been deferred, none opposed. Thank you and have a good night. You'll see the Secretary Treasurer at your earliest convenience.
Of course. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you. You too.
Madam Chair, we have one more hand.
Yes, please go ahead. Go ahead, Ms. Prar.
I'd like to defer. It's file number A145-2024 for 349 Gloucester Avenue.
Okay.
It's come to my attention through Jennifer at the building department that there's another variance that I have to apply for GFA. And so I have my architect doing the recalculations and I have to resubmit the drawings. The drawings haven't changed. It's just he calculated the square footage wrong.
Very well, thank you. Members of the committee, all those in support of a deferral. Okay, your application has been deferred. Thank you, and you'll see the Secretary Treasurer at your earliest convenience.
Okay, thank you.
Have a good night. Okay. Mr. Dickey, you had your hand up.
Yes, Madam Chair. I went to see the property at 2092 Seabrook, and there was no sign on it. I was there today, and I don't know if any of the others encountered that, but it's what I had today. That's CAVA 079-2024. 2092 Seabrook.
Okay, yeah, this is the last application on our agenda tonight. It's the one that was deferred from May the 15th. Did anyone else have that issue? Okay, well, regardless, if there's insufficient notice, we are within our purview to defer our applications. If the sign was missing, then the application should be deferred. Members of the committee, all those in support of a deferral for insufficient notice? Okay, application has been deferred. Please notify the agent and owner, Madam Secretary Treasurer. Does anyone else hear an echo, or is it just me?
There was an echo.
There is an echo? Okay. I thought
What?
it was just now it was better, yes. Okay, very well. We'll proceed with the remainder of the items on our agenda. Let me just write a note here, insufficient. Okay, so the first item on our agenda this evening will be, oh, I need to. CAV A140 of 2024 at 415 third line. Again, that is CAV 140 of 2024 at 415 third line. I've got Mr. Van Kulen here. Go ahead.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Curtis Van Kulen of Hughes Design Studio. I represent the owners of 415 Third Line. We are seeking two variances. This is CAV 140 2024. The requested variances are mainly due to a proposed one-story, pretty much at grade rear yard covered porch. The variances include a reduced rear yard setback and lot coverage for the proposed structure. Mainly if staff actually could pull up the site plan and possibly zoom in a little bit. Thank you so much. Mainly due to the positioning of the homes along third line, the reconstruction had to comply with the front yard setback, thus positioning the home a little further back on the lot, making it a little tricky to comply with the rear yard setback for a one-story unenclosed covered porch. We have the minor variances in front of you today as 4.96 meters instead of 7.5 meters, which is just like I said, as an account to the positioning, and then a very slight overage in the lot coverage, again, just attributed to the unenclosed one-story covered porch at grade. We do have positive comments from town staff, and I have read all of their report and agree with everything. And we do feel it's minor in nature, with no impact to any of the neighbors, either side or rear. So with that, I welcome any of your questions this evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Van Kulen. Are there any questions or items of clarification of the applicant? Go ahead, Mr. Dickey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Your your site plan, I don't know if I was looking at it wrong. It looks to be a landscaping plan. It doesn't give me all the information I want. How deep is the rear covered porch? Is my question, my first question.
Sure. That should be indicated on the architectural drawings, also submitted along with the application. Off the top of my head, it's not indicated on what's been uploaded on the site, so you probably don't have it there. I'd have to pull up my file on the floor plan. So if through you, Madam Chair, if you could give me a moment, I can give you the exact dimension.
Yeah, I see it. 12 feet. Yeah, I didn't think, I'm sorry, I didn't think to look at the floor plans. Usually that information, I find it on the site plans.
No worries.
The 12 feet, let me just convert to meters here. It's going to be 4 meters. So your porch is sticking out 4 meters. You've got left 4 point what? I'm kind of a stickler on setbacks here. So
okay, 4.96, yes.
So that's like 5 meters, and you're supposed to have 7.5. So that's like 2.5 meters. You're sticking into the rear yard, and your porch is about 4 meters deep. Tell me why you can't fit. Why you need that rear yard variance?
Well, the positioning of the home is such that we are already roughly about 8.9 meters. And, you know, if we were to do a porch of any sort of substantive dimension to actually sit out and, you know, have a table and a chair and enjoy, we need something in the area of 10 to 12 feet. So anything less than that would be really hard to have a table and a set of chairs on. And as I mentioned earlier, you know, due to the positioning of the homes along third line, they're all pushed very far back. And then the rebuilding of the home, you know, required it to only be allowed to be set forward by 1 meter. So, you know, in respecting the overall fabric of the neighborhood, we position the house as per the zoning bylaw. And then when the owner brought up the requirement for the rear porch and thus subsequently coming back for the variance, this is where we are, and this is the area that we're dealt with, basically.
Okay, obviously I didn't go into the backyard, so I don't really know what fences are back there, what privacy or you know, what landscaping exists to give some greater degree of privacy to the other rear yard neighbors, abutting neighbors. There's going to be 3 neighbors. I don't see letters of support from any of them, so I haven't gone that route. So tell me why you think they shouldn't be concerned.
We have a fence in the rear yard. It does, I believe it's in the area of 6 to 7 feet. The porch itself is only about a few risers above grade. So privacy wise, if you're standing on the rear porch, you're only going to be elevated by maybe, you know, 18 inches or so above grade. So looking into backyards is going to be still next to impossible with the rear yard fence.
Good, thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Harkness, I was speaking to you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had imagined as much, but I didn't want to be presumptuous. This is a question for Mr. Van Keulen as well. So we saw this application, we saw this site through a previous minor variance application in January of 24, correct?
I believe so, yes.
Why was this not sought at the same time?
I'm not 100% sure, to be honest. The owner came back to us with this requirement at a later date. I don't really have an answer for you why it wasn't sought at that time. Overall, you know, people's lives change. I can't speak to the exact circumstances, but they did come back later on and said, you know what, we'd really like a roof covering on the rear of the dwelling, so that we can sit outside and enjoy the backyard. So, to give you an exact answer, I can't 100% do that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or items of clarification? Okay, I see none. Has anyone called with interest for this application, Madam Secretary Treasurer? We do not have any.
We have one hand up, Madam Chair.
Okay. Go ahead. I don't see it on my panel, but is it through the phone or video conference? Okay, there we go. Mr. Barton?
Hi there. Sorry, I'm speaking on a different matter. It was for the 2092 Seabrook Avenue file, so I apologize for that.
Okay, just as an FYI, we deferred the Seabrook application during the beginning of the meeting for insufficient notice. One of the members was there today and they didn't see the sign, so it was deferred. You'll have to see
I was just hoping the opportunity to address that, just because I had called the owner about the status of the sign, so that's what I was hoping to do.
Okay, so just hang tight, we'll get there. Let's just finish the application that we have on hand. Go ahead. So if there are no questions or items of clarification for Mr. Keulen, we can start the discussion. Who would like to move a motion? We'll take the matter into committee.
We have no hands up, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Who would like to move a motion? Mr. Talowski, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I'm satisfied that this application isn't going to cause any impacts. I think the design of the house was addressed previously. The variances in front of us. It's not the rear porch or the use of the rear porch that's causing the variance. It's the fact that it's covered. I don't believe that the addition of the roof is going to cause an impact. Madam Chair, I believe that this application does satisfy the four tests of the Planning Act. I would note that Mr. Dickey noted there was no letters of support, but there were no letters of opposition. Nobody from the neighborhood spoke in opposition. So I would move approval and make that approval subject to the dwelling being constructed in general accordance with the site plan dated August 12th, 2024, the elevations dated August 8th, 2024, and that the approval expire within 2 years of building permit hasn't been issued.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tusk. Is there discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? All those opposed? Okay, the application has been approved. Thank you, Mr. Vancouver.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
Okay. Madam Secretary Treasurer, can you invite Mr. Barton in very quickly before we move on to the next application with Ms. Villa?
Certainly.
Okay, Mr. Barton, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Yes, I just was hoping to speak because I'd installed this sign on the property on the date that was required. And the owner, I called the owner after I heard about the deferral just to make sure the sign was still on site. I understand it had fallen down a couple of times just with wind and rain, but that he had put it back up on a few occasions, that he had done so today. So I think the sign may have just fallen down for a short period of time, perhaps when Mr. Dickey had visited the site, but it's still there now. And he had also indicated he spoke with the neighbors and they had received the notice of the application as well. So I was just hoping, given the status of this being a previous deferral, I had provided photos of the site of the sign installed on site, as well as the acknowledgement of the sign being installed, that we could proceed without the deferral. And I guess any questions that you have about that, but certainly the sign was installed and maintained by the owner on the site up until today.
And I understand that, and we do not doubt that you did follow all the steps and did your due diligence in maintaining the sign. However, out of an abundance of caution, as a committee, we had agreed a long time ago that if there was any time, no matter, we have no way of ascertaining whether it was down for 10 hours or 2 days with wind and rain, and just out of fairness for all the applicants, if at any time there was a notification that there was the sign was missing from the frontage of the property, that the item would be deferred. So while I understand your reasoning, I'm as far as I'm concerned, I'm not going to change my mind, because that's just out of fairness for all applicants that have come before us. And I apologize that it's you that has to go through this, but we're hitting the winter period and you have no idea how many times people will come in and tell us exactly the same thing with winter and snow and storm. And it's really up to the applicant to maintain those signs. It's according to the bylaw and it's the regulations for these applications. Mr. Dickey, I see your motion. Did you want to add anything?
Well, I just want to say, I was there at noon today, and I'm not so sticky that I would look and see. There was no stick. It wasn't that I saw a sign that had fallen down on the ground. There's been other cases where that has happened, and I'll give the benefit of the doubt, but there wasn't any stick there. Sometimes the sign falls down and there's still the stick holding, standing there. So I looked high and low. So to me, it wasn't something. It wasn't something that just. I shouldn't say it like that. It wasn't evidence that as a sign had just fallen down. It would have been on the ground if that was the case. And if that was the case, I probably wouldn't be making note of it. That wasn't the case today. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Dickey. So there's that, Mr. Barton. So we do apologize for it on your behalf, but those are the rules, and that's just how it's going to be. But if you see the Secretary Treasurer and you're ready, I'm sure they'll do their best to fit you in on the next possible agenda. Okay, thank you and have a good night. All right. Let me just remind everyone with the number. The number to call with interest for an application is 905-815-6095. Again, it's 905-815-6095. Staff will be standing by to take your call and provide you with further instructions to join the video conference. The next item on our agenda is CAV 142 of 2024 at 30 Chisholm Street. Again, it's CAV 142 of 2024 at 30 Chisholm Street. Go ahead, Ms. Villa.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Emily Villa, and I'm from the Office of John Wilmot Architecting. Yes, thank you very much. If we could take a look at the first page here, we have been engaged by the owners Stuart McKenzie and Christine Taylor to add a small sitting area at the northeast corner of the house. It's a small addition of 10.74 meters square, and that amounts to 115.64 square feet. And we are seeking a relief of 3 minor variances. Number 1, we are seeking to reduce the flankage yard setback to a minimum 2.54 meters. And the minimum flankage yard setback allowed in this zone is 3.5 meters. And you can see that in the site plan. It's a pink line that crosses through the addition, shaded in gray. If you could please turn to page 2. And so number 2, we are seeking to increase the maximum residential floor area to 43.56%, whereas the maximum is 43%. And number 3, we are seeking to increase the maximum lot coverage to 36.32%, whereas the maximum is 35%. And can you please turn to page 4? Thank you. And this is the elevation, the front elevation from 30 Chisholm Street, from Chisholm Street, I should say. And so the 1-story addition, you can see that on the right-hand side, is proposed with windows on all 3 sides, and it's to mitigate its solid appearance and to help it blend into the existing dwelling. So if you could please turn to page 5, and you can see it's the addition as you see it on the left-hand side as you face from Anderson Street. And if you turn to page 6, it will be from the neighbor's point of view, and that's from the south neighbor. And please turn to page 3. The neighborhood with predominantly narrow lots is comprised of different housing stocks that range from townhouses to bungalows and 2-story family dwellings in many diverse massing and styles. Excuse me. And therefore, we believe that the addition on the existing dwelling will maintain that general characteristics of the neighborhood. And we received comments from staff, and they supported the application. And we also canvassed the surrounding neighborhood, and I spoke to 6 neighbors that were home at the time, and they had no objection. And I left behind info packages on the empty houses. And we received 3 signed letters of support, and you could see that as the 3 pink dots on the map. They were included with the staff comments. And there was another support letter that was emailed to me earlier this afternoon, and it's the one directly to the west of the property, and it's on 32 Anderson Street. So that's that little green circle. And if you go to page 7, please, you will see the email that was sent to me earlier, a letter of support. So overall, we believe that the variances are minor in nature. The proposed addition maintains the general intent and purpose of the official plan and the zoning bylaw, and the proposal is desirable for the appropriate development of the subject land. And this concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Villa. Are there any questions or items of clarification of Ms. Villa at this time? Okay, I see none. Has anyone called with interest for this application, Madam Secretary Treasurer? Raise their hand from the audience.
We've had no calls and no hands showing.
Very well, thank you. Ready for a motion then? Go ahead, Mr. Hardcastle, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having reviewed the materials, undertaken a site visit, and having reviewed the written staff report and heard the comments from Ms. Villa, I am satisfied that the requested variances conform to the 4 tests of the Act. Accordingly, I'll put forward a motion of approval. finding that the variances can, well, I said that, sorry. This would be subject, this motion would be subject to two conditions. Those conditions being that the addition be constructed in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevation drawings dated July 11th, 2024, and that the approval will expire within 2 years of the date of the decision if a permit has not been issued. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Harcasser. Discussion on this recommendation. Okay, I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved, none opposed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Have a good evening.
Okay. Application CAV 143 of 2024 at 2063 Salvatore Boulevard. Again, it's CAV 143 of 2024 at 2063 Salvatore Boulevard. Go ahead, Mr. Rafiq.
Good evening, Madam Chair and staff members. I am the agent presenting today on behalf of the owner of the property at 2063 Salvatore Boulevard. We have two variances. If I could get you to skip through page number 6, you see the front elevation of this home, and continue the presentation. Yes, we have two variances. I'll address them one by one. The first one is regarding square footage of the garage or the area of the garage. We're asking for 3.2 square meters in addition to what the bylaw permits. I want to point out that we have no intention of making this a 3-car garage. It's still in keeping with the character of the neighborhood with the 2-car garage. The only thing that we're doing here is asking for slightly more width and for the owner to fit his larger cars. That's so it's very obvious it's the 2-car garage. The next variance is regarding the residential floor area. Here we're asking for 2.65% in addition of what the zoning bylaw permits. I would like to point out here that we ensure that the massing of the home is broken up so it doesn't feel like a big block. You'll see that the roof lines, there's variation in the roof lines. Above the garage, the roof line is dropped and we're working with dormer windows. And we ensure that there's a variation in dimension from the front line. There's projections where the house is pushed back and pushed out in order to break up the massing further. Also, we have all the zoning we are honoring all the zoning bylaws that are related to the curb appeal. We do not exceed the height, we do not exceed the side yard setbacks, and also we do not exceed the lot coverage. So from the curb, it will still be in keeping. We're not exceeding anything from the street. Now, if you scroll back up and go to page 2, 2 is fine. Yeah, you'll see that as you go further towards the house, the side yards are, or the house is pushed away from the side yard to be narrow in order to stay away further from the neighboring properties. And regardless, the entire backyard is also completely surrounded by trees. There's very little to probably close to no visibility from the neighbors into this backyard. So I think from a privacy perspective, the massing is also mostly hidden. Okay, so lastly, I would like to just point out that we have comments from the staff. They pointed out the items that I mentioned and a few further items. They also was pointed out that there are a few other properties similar in the area that have received similar variances, and a few examples were given, which I will not bring up in this case. But overall, we're in keeping with the evolving character of the neighborhood, and we hope that you agree and give us approval today. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pugh. Are there any questions or items of clarification? Okay, I see none. Madam Secretary Treasurer, has anyone called with interest for this application?
We've had no calls and there's no hands.
Okay. Who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Mr. Dickey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Based upon my review of the owner's application, site plans, the building plans, my site visit, presentation by the owner, the the planning staff's report, I'm satisfied that the variances are minor in nature and conform to the 4 tests under the Planning Act. I put forth a motion that the application is applied for be approved, subject to the conditions that dwelling be constructed in general accordance with the submitted site plan dated May 30th, 2024, the elevation drawings that were submitted with the application, plus that the approval expires 2 years from the date the decision if the building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction.
Thank you, Mr. Dick. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? Okay, I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved, none opposed. Have a good night.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Good night.
Okay. Application CAV 144 of 2024 at 2255 Kings Mill Crescent. Again, that's CAV 144 of 2024 at 2255 Kings Mill Crescent. Go ahead, Mr. Gannon.
Hi, good evening, Madam Chair. Good evening, everyone. I'm here on what I consider hopefully a simple variance. The thing is, I'm requesting the permit to put the pool equipments along the sideline as it's shown on the photo in front of you. It's the bylaw is asking, the bylaw is 0.6 meters. What we're asking is to increase that to 0.2 from the lot line to be able to put all the equipments with the AC and the pump and the heater for the pool equipments there. I've got no comments. I've also discussed this with my neighbors. They're all okay with that. And I've got 3 letters of support. They're all into approval for what I'm proposing tonight. I guess that's it. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yan. Are there any questions or items of clarification of the applicant? Mr. Hardcastle, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is actually first for staff. I'm looking at the staff report right now, and I see that there's a picture enclosed here in the staff report that shows the equipment. And notwithstanding the setbacks for the pieces of equipment, the equipment is located on a concrete pad. That concrete pad appears to be at a different grade than the surrounding area. And my understanding is that typically these houses, particularly ones with relatively modest side yards like this, would require a common swale along the fence line. And I'd like to understand what, if any, evaluation was undertaken by technical staff to ensure that the drainage patterns, particularly for the abutting property owner, are not negatively impacted by the concrete that's associated with the equipment.
Thank you. Through the chair to the member, development engineering staff did comment or provide some remarks that this would not be a situation that they would like to see because, as you stated, sorry, I heard a bit of a Echo. A subdivision of this age would have a shared swale. And so that is why they were concerned about whether grading may have been an issue. But as I understand from the applicant that this concrete may have been here for some time. Now, I will ask the applicant to confirm that. When asked about the image, the photo that was included in the staff report, that was taken directly from the applicant's submission. I did not go and visit the site to see the side yard and the condition of the location of the pool equipment.
Mr. Gannon, do you have any comments with respect to how long this concrete panel has been there?
Yes, actually what happened is when the contractor came to put the pool equipment, not the heater, they put it on, unfortunately, stepping stones, which were unstable. So what we had to do is to just like make a frame around the stones and fill it with some concrete, just to make it stable. There will still be a side sway, and that's exactly what happened because we have been visited by the inspector who saw and mentioned that the pool equipment should not be there when he was checking my swales, and I did effectively put swales on both sides of the property line to ensure that proper drainage and stormwater will be correctly drawn into the end where is the catch basin. Now, the concrete pad is not very thick. It's actually about 10 or 15 centimeters at the most, but it's just for the to make sure that the equipment are stable and will not even fall to the property line, because it's again unfortunate situation with the contractor when he was finishing his job incorrectly. He did this, and I had to get someone else to finish his job. But yes, I'm aware that there should be swales there, and it's as it's seen, it's only a small part where the equipment is, but before and after that, the swales are continuing to the sides of the property.
And I do see some plants in the back there behind the. So is that grass or dirt behind between the pool equipment and the air conditioner? There's some greenery in the back.
That must be weed, which I have taken.
Oh,
yes.
Okay. Sorry, so the concrete is just like an L shape where the pool equipment is, and then behind there.
Right, there is nothing. It was the way it is when we bought the house.
Sorry, Mr. Hardcastle, did you have anything else to clarify?
No, Madam Chair. I think that answers my questions in understanding the scenario that's there. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. If there are no further comments or items of clarification, we'll take the matter into committee. Who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Mr. Hardcastle. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As my comments would have indicated, I have some reservations, not necessarily with respect to the equipment itself, but the concrete that is present there. I'm going to, based upon what I've heard, I'm going to put forward a motion of approval, but I am going to put forward a condition, and I'm going to I'm going to condition this and seek that the proponent or owner reinstate the drainage swale along the common property line to the satisfaction of, would that be the Director of Development Engineering?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm seeing staff affirm that. Just in terms of rationale, I don't believe that the equipment itself poses any negative impacts with respect to adjacent property owners, and I've seen some support from the adjacent property owners with respect to that matter. So it's really the retention of the drainage that is of concern to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? Okay, I see none. All those in support? Okay, your application has been approved, none opposed. Thank you
very much.
Have a good night.
Thank you. You as well.
Next item on our agenda is CAV 146 of 2024, 216 Forestwood Drive. Again, that's CAV 146 of 2024 at 216 Forestwood Drive. Mr. Pfeffer?
Oh, hello.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so you may recall that we were here in May with this house, and at that time it was refused in a split decision. And so we've made a number of changes to the proposal, and we're coming back. We've addressed all of the items of concern that were raised by the committee at that time. And at that time as well, we had concerns from one neighbor, and we've talked to that neighbor, and their concerns have been addressed, and we've made a more sort of thorough presentation of what we're proposing to the other neighbors as well. And there's no other opposition to this proposal. So I'll just remind you that this proposal did have an approval for this lot from this committee in 2022. And what we're looking at here is a proposal that's actually kind of significantly less impactful from that proposal. And that was the metric that, you know, staff looked at the last time we were here. So in this facade that you're looking at, I mean, one thing that's important is that we've followed a lot of the guidelines for stable residential communities in terms of the fact that, you know, we've got this central element that brings attention to the front entry, but then the facade steps back and it steps back again. We've got that very strong horizontal elements. We've got that kind of single story scale, human scaled horizontal porch element, which helps break up the massing. We've got a lot of articulation around the windows. We've got the different materiality with the coins. The last proposal had a higher roof. Now the roof is the same height as the roof which was approved in the prior 2022 hearing, but only for that central portion. So, and actually that's only, you know, the front portion that you see is that 30 centimeters more, and then there's a drainage roof beyond that contributing to that 30 centimeter variance that you don't see. And with this proposal, this time, now the roofs are stepping back at the sides, which they weren't before. So if you see the next page, what you'll see is what we had the last time, and what we had this time. So this time we've taken down the absolute height of the roof. We've gotten rid of those dormers, which Mr. Hardcastle suggested the last time we were here, kind of made it seem like a 3-story building. And then now you can see the roof kind of steps down further at the side of the building. Going to the next page, we've also reduced in absolute terms the FSI that we're requesting. We are not requesting a lot coverage variance. And you see on this plan, the blue dashed line, that's the plan that was approved by the committee prior. And it also had a 5-meter high garage on the side property line. It was actually 68 square meters, and that didn't count towards the FSI. So there's actually a lot more built area in that prior approval that we don't have. And here you can see, as well as the stepping at the front, we're stepping away at the sides. We've got a really generous setback to the east, and we step back to the west. And what you don't see in the front rendering, of course, is that we're preserving all of those front yard trees. So if you take a look at the next page, you'll see the rendering from the 2022 approval from this committee. And staff said at the last hearing that they thought that building was less massive than what we're proposing. But as a matter of fact, it's kind of a pretty square box with a high eave line and that gable roof, which is a little unrelenting, and it's a bigger building. And then there's that 5-story high, you know, to the peak, not to that little decorative element, garage at the sides, whereas we have a stepping roof form, and we've got a lot more articulation at the mast. And on the next page, you can see how that 9.3 meter, that 30 centimeter height variance that neighbor got approved the last time is really more impactful, because they've got that really big, flat gable wall right next, you know, at the side yard setback, whereas we have, you know, that central element, which is at the side yard setback, and then we step back, you know, 8 meters to that part at the front, 6 meters to the part of the side. So we're really, and we've got a hip roof, which is receding in perspective from all sides. So that prior approval by this committee had a massing, which was really much more impactful to the neighbors. The prior proposal we had some balconies. I know that was not, you know, viewed favorably by this committee. We got rid of those balconies. We've reduced the overall FSI. We've reduced the height. We've changed the massing. We've shortened the building. So we brought that back wall forward to create more open space on the lot. And that kind of, you know, is basically what we've done to address all of the concerns that you saw before. So if you see the next couple of pages, you'll see a rendering or a 3-dimensional view of the back of the property. You'll see an aerial photograph of our proposal. And I think the footprint of our house, which we don't need a lot coverage variance for, very much in keeping with the you know, the footprints of houses in the area, just just in front and slightly to the north in this case. There was a house that had a greater FSI approval. And then, you know, on the last few pages, I have some photos of other houses in the neighborhood with which we have, I think, a kind of a comparable mass. If you take a look at the next page as well, I think there's some other sort of similar houses. And like I said, we've also talked with all the neighbors this time, and I don't think we have anyone objecting. So we've tried to bring this house, you know, absolutely in compatibility with the guidelines for stable residential communities. We've reduced it from what we have had before, and I think it's certainly much less impactful than the proposal that this committee approved back in 2022. But happy to take any questions.
Okay, let's get the ball rolling. Who would like to ask any questions, or are there any items of clarification? Mr. Hardcastle, go ahead.
Madam Chair, I did not raise my hand.
Oh, did I do that switch again? I apologize. I'm not going to hear the end of it tonight. I'm so sorry, Mr. Talowski.
That's okay. I understand getting confused with my brother, John. My question's for staff on, I'm a little confused on the height variance. The same height was approved originally, and the staff report doesn't support the same height on this application. And the rationale in the staff report is that the previous variance provided varying roof heights. This application actually provides greater varying roof heights than the original application that staff supported. So I'm struggling to understand staff's objection to the roof height in this application.
Yes, thank you through you, Madam Chair. Although the variances may have been supported in the past, I know that this is a different dwelling being brought forward, and therefore the approval is reviewed in its own right. Now, I know the previous proposal was addressed through staff report, and the approval was included in the submission. However, there are other elements to this dwelling that staff were of the opinion were more impactful. So with that being said, again, staff believe that each application should be reviewed in its own merits. And in simply reviewing this application, we maintain the concerns that the massing and scale of the dwelling proposed may result in an overpowering effect on the abutting single-story dwellings. I understand that this proposal brought forward does show varying roof heights now from the last iteration brought forward. However, we saw that step down in the garage height as an attribute that was generous in assisting in the differentiating heights leading to that single story abutting the dwelling previously.
Anything further? Mr. Dick? No, okay. Okay. Mr. Talowski?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Question for the applicant. The overall massing square footage of this application compared to the one with the garage in the rear, is this one larger or smaller?
So the one with the garage to the rear needed a lot coverage variance, and we do not need a lot coverage variance. And the one with the garage to the rear, it had a residential GFA of 31.49%. We're asking for 32.7%. But I'd point out that prior one had a detached garage, and that detached garage did not count for our GFA. And that detached garage was 68 square meters. So even if you did the garage floor space deduction, that would wind up having the floor space on the lot being greater than what we had. And that garage was also, that detached garage of the prior proposal was 90 centimeters, 0.9 meters from the side lot line. It, like the house itself, had a gable roof, and the peak of that gable was approved at 4.98, so basically 5 meters. So I think the massing of this house is absolutely less than that house. I think putting that really substantial 5-meter high garage right on the neighboring property line, I think having that really substantial gable basically at the side yard setback for basically the entire depth of the house made that, and having a lot coverage variance, made that a much more impactful proposal. Our proposal is articulated, the massing is articulated from all sides. It steps away from that western property line. The roof is a hip rather than a gable roof. So it recedes, above the eave line. So absolutely, this is a much less massive building and less impactful to both the street and all the neighboring properties.
Thank you.
Anything further? Okay, I see none. Madam Secretary Treasurer, has anyone called with interest for this application?
We've had no calls and no hands showing.
Thank you. All right. If there are no further questions or items of clarification, we can take the matter into committee. Who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Mr. Towski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I was the dissenting voice on this application the last time it was in front of committee. Didn't believe it should have been turned down then. What's in front of us today is an improvement to that. So I think it goes without saying. I'm going to move approval of this application, finding that it meets the test of the Planning Act and would have no impact. And I would note there are no opposition unlisted from the community. And Chair, this is a better solution. It may appear to be larger based on square footage, but based on the actual built mass on the property and the location of that mass, this is taking the variance and centralizing it into the middle of the lot. It's not imposing on the side yard neighbor. It's not imposing on the rear neighbor the way the previous application which staff seemed to support. I think the height variance on this one is less impactful than the one that was supported previously. And when I look at the elevations of the differences, it's deceiving. In the original application, it looks like there's significant step backs, but the garage that gives it that impression is at the back of the lot. And from the street, you really have to put your hand over to one side of the building and cover the garage and just compare the mass of the actual house to the actual house that's being proposed now. And again, with the setbacks in the roof line, the setbacks in the building as the applicant proposed, I believe they are mitigating the impacts. And this, as I said, by centralizing a similar mass to the center of the property, as opposed to coverage variance and being right on the property lines of the rear and side neighbor, I believe this is a better solution, is more appropriate, and it meets the test of the Planning Act. And Chair, again, I'm sure this will open up discussion, but I'm going to move approval of this application, subject to two conditions, and I'm going to have to find dates. Just bear with me, unless.
Madam Chair, I have the dates written down if you want.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dickey.
And just have them written down. July 19th, 2024 for both the elevation plans and the site plan.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I would make that approval conditional on development proceeding in general accordance with the site plan and elevations dated July 19th, 2024, and that a building permit issue, or that the approval will expire if the building permit has an issue within 2 years.
Very well, thank you, Mr. Osowski. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? Go ahead, Mr. Hardcastle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have much to say here. I'll just indicate that the modest modifications made to the proposal have pushed me inches across the line, and I will be supporting the motion on the floor.
Very well. Mr. Dickey, you had your hand up as well?
Yes, Madam Chair, I just thought I'd speak my piece up front to say, yes, I'm in the same position. I support the motion on the floor for approval.
Very well. Okay, so the motion is to approve subject to the conditions stated by Mr. Talowski. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved, none opposed.
Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
Have a good night. So the minutes for September the 18th need confirmation. Thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. And then motion to adjourn, 8/11. Thank you, Mr. Hardcastle.